We actually look very professional, Nadisha. I mean, you look professional. I look this. I just did a military cut, and people are asking, why did you do that? And yeah, anyway. So, Nadisha, before we start, we know we are going to discuss about homeschooling, which is a topic which is slowly getting a lot of interest even in India among the Christian circles, and also secular, right? As we were discussing. But before that, I just want you to tell everybody how we got in touch for the first time. Do you remember?
YCPG magazine.
That was the start, and but I think I
I
were
think you met my parents.
parents, yeah, in
Yes.
Chennai, and then they gave put me in touch with you. Then we got in touch for some magazine, and then we were in touch on and off, and then I got in touch with you 4 years back for the interview, and
Yes.
we have had certain disagreements, but eventually, I think we have kept in contact, isn't it?
Yes.
And also, a lot of people got in touch with you after the first interview we did for the channel, right, Nadisha? Could you share about that?
Yes. So I think some people watched our interview last time and contacted JD, I think, and then he gave them my number. And so many called me up saying that they're discerning, and some of them told me their life stories. And I prayed for them. Some of them eventually joined our support groups for Catholic homeschooling. And some, I think, are still discerning, because some I didn't hear from. So, but we pray for them, because it's, in the end, homeschooling is a calling. So, yes.
That is something which we are going to discuss, like how you said homeschooling is a calling, because that's the question everybody has, right? Should every Christian and Catholic family, should they be homeschooling their children, or is it a call from God and God tells you whether you have to or not to? Isn't it, Nadisha?
Yes. So I think if God is moving you in your heart towards homeschooling, then yes, you definitely should discern. At the same time, I don't think it is like every Catholic has to homeschool. But what a Catholic needs to understand is like what is their understanding of their role as parents and also as education. You want to ask me this later or something?
No, I just, as you rightly said, I just want to read what the church says both in one of the encyclicals and also from Vatican II. I'll read the Vatican II first. So, parents
Sure.
who have the primary and inalienable right and duty to educate their children must enjoy true liberty in their choice of schools. Consequently, okay, it talks about being primary educators. Okay, this one, how do I pronounce it? Familiarity.
What is that? Familiaris consortio.
Okay. Since parents have given children their life, they are bound by the most serious obligation to educate their offspring and therefore must be recognized as the primary and principal educators. So the church has always insisted that parents are the primary educators, but today we see that parents are outsourcing the education to schools, their faith formation to the culture, and constant outsourcing, and they do not realize that they are the ones who should be forming their children, and all other institutions are there to aid them and support them in that endeavor, isn't it?
Yes. So as the document that you read says that parents have the right to educate their children, and actually Pope John Paul says that parents, by just being parents, they are educators of their children.
Yes.
Okay, so just the role of parenting includes educating. So this could mean different things, I guess, for different people. And then parents have the right to choose how they want to educate their children. And if they need help, they could choose their teachers. Okay, and the teachers then become partners of the parents, and not the other way around. Nowadays, we see like if we send our children to school, it's like whatever the teacher says goes, and parents don't really have a say, especially in the curriculum. So whereas the document says that teachers have to be the partners of the parents. So they don't replace the parents. So parents are still educators even if they send their children to school. So yeah.
That's well said. So before we discuss all that, Nadisha, if you could share your journey in briefly about how you were homeschooled, right? I think your parents were among the first in India to take this brave decision to homeschool all their children. So you were the eldest, isn't it? So you would have felt the
Yes.
benefit or whatever you felt. How was your journey?
I was the guinea pig, as I always say. Okay, so my parents pulled me and my brother out of school when I was in the fourth, like so from the fourth standard I was at home.
Mm.
And before that, my mom had checked up with the court and all if she could do it and what were the repercussions of it, if any. So it seemed pretty okay. So she went ahead with it.
Mm.
And basically, my parents read this book. Okay.
Okay.
Catholic Homeschooling might come. Yeah.
Uh,
Catholic Homeschooling by Mary K. Clark. And they were very like touched by it. And this was one of their main reasons to homeschool. Another main reason was that my mom used to feel very upset that we would not get to attend daily mass. So we would be running for the bus, and there was the church on the way. So we would go for mass, and I know around offertory time our bus would come, so we would be like running out of church. So mom used to feel very uncomfortable about this, and so she wanted us to like go for daily mass. So that was one main reason. And so yeah, and also the school was a bit far. Mom was already expecting her third baby, and dad was traveling. He had his business in Bombay, so that was another reason, the distance. And also my mom would volunteer in the school where we were going, so she would know what was discussed in the staff rooms and in the school bus. So she was very upset with what she heard in the school bus, or she would hear the older children talking. So all these things, like, sort of influenced my parents to take this decision to homeschool. Now looking back, I really wonder how they did it, because at that time, it was like unheard of. And so, yes, I was happy at home. I had a lot of time to do what I wanted. But I also would feel sometimes very ashamed, maybe, because of the way people looked at me. Especially, we lived in a village, so the villagers would be like, no school. So I would never like to be seen outside the home during school hours. So, my mom wanted to send me to the shop. I would say, I'll go, like, after 2 o'clock or something. Because everyone would ask me, like, which school? And then I would be like, homeschool. And they would be like, what is that? Like, till today, we have some people reacting like that. So imagine that time. That was like 28 years back or something.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then people would look at me like I'm somebody odd, So I also went through those feelings, in the years that I was growing up. And finally, when I was in the 10th, so we didn't have any exams at home, because my mom knew our progress, since it was a one-on-one relationship. So she knew where we stood. But I liked to see where like how much I know, kind of thing. So I would borrow the exam papers of my friend, and I would answer it on my own, correct my own papers to see, like, okay, fine. So in the 10th, we did open school, and that time I faced a lot of pressure from myself, okay? My parents were like, it's okay, you can fail. And I was like, no, I can't fail. Like, the whole world is looking at me to see, like, what my parents have done. Like, like, what's going to happen now, the 10th standard exam. And I took all the regular subjects of school. Actually, in open school, you can select your subjects. But I wanted to take all the same subjects, because I didn't want anyone to say, like, she passed because she took all the easy subjects. So I took all the same subjects, and by God's grace, I got a distinction. And when I saw my results, I was like, oh, it was that easy. I should have studied harder, because I knew I had not put in my best. I knew that, like, my personality is like the type who studies at the last minute, even though I was homeschooled. Okay, so yeah. So that was it. And then I chose to do my 12th also through open school, so studying at home, because I saw that I could do other stuff. And I did a stenography course just out of interest, which that also I really excelled in.
What is
and
that?
Then I did stenography, shorthand, and
Typewrite?
typing, and
okay.
yeah. Shorthand, like secretarial, different way of writing, taking down notes fast. Okay, so I enjoyed that also. I did that while I was studying for my 12th. And for my 12th, I went for tuitions for science, but I went to one none, not a formal tuition class, because I never really liked science much, but still I took science because I always wanted to do home science. So that was my aim, and I knew that in Bombay, I had seen the curriculum. I knew that the 11th and 12th standard students had science. In Goa, they take any stream. But I said, no, I will do that. If science is good for home science, I will study science. So 12th, I got a first class. I came down a bit because of science, I think. So I was not really interested in science, but when I joined home science, I loved biochemistry. So something changed in me at that time, and I started like really loving science, and I did very well in it, which surprised me, but which also made me understand that every child has a different time for learning different things. Okay, so you can't expect all the children to be good in everything at the same time. Okay, and sometimes in school what happens is, because it's practical, right? We can't say, okay, you can go slow in math, you can hurry up, we can't do that. So everybody's at the same level, they get the same instruction and they get the same exam. But some children, maybe they just bloom later, and if we force them at that time, they sort of dislike the subject, and then it becomes like a mental block, and then they think, okay, I'm not going to be good at this, and it's like never going to work out for me. And so there's always that part of them that they have left undiscovered. Okay, so that is what I think, I benefited from homeschooling because of this. I could accelerate in whichever subjects I was good at or which I liked, like English. Even if I was in 8th standard, I would be doing 9th standard books, because I would just finish it so fast and I wanted to learn more. And so like science, and I would be like one class behind. And so this was one benefit, I could say, of homeschooling. And so when I reached the first year, it was like my first formal system of education, because open school was largely self-learning. So that was the first time I actually realized where I stood in a crowd. So I remember after my first term exam, my classmates came and asked me, can you show us your paper? We want to see how you've written the answers. Because I had topped the first term. So, and I was so surprised, because it was like my first time, and I was like, I should be asking them, please show me how, to write. And they were like looking at my papers in the first year. So, yeah. And then in the third year, I wanted to specialize in human development. I was always interested in understanding the human person and family life and child development and all that. So, but we didn't have that specialization in Goa. So I asked for a transfer to Bombay, and the Bombay principal told me that, the level in Goa is a little lower than Bombay, and I don't think you'll be able to cope with and your syllabus is different. You've not done so and so subjects. So I was a bit disappointed, but my mom, she has this never die spirit. So we went to the university, we spoke to the registrar, and he said, it's okay, you have to do these things and you can get a transfer. And so the principal very hesitatingly took me, and she assigned a teacher to keep an eye on me. She said, keep an eye on that student and that Goa girl. And also I had to take on additional subjects of the second year, which I hadn't done in Goa. So along with my third year, I had to study some extra subjects and give those exams. And I did it. And I remember for the prelims of my third year, everyone was calculating the marks, and then suddenly they all look at me because they realized I topped at the prelims, and I was so surprised, because I also started believing a bit, okay, maybe my level is a little lower than the Bombay students, and I won't be able to even at that time, my mom, I told the principal, but ma'am, she's topped in Goa. It's yeah, but their level is lower than us, So I got many friends that day after my prelims. Yeah. Suddenly people started noticing me. And then for my final exams, I actually topped all the specializations of home science, and I was awarded the university gold medal, which I never, I was so naive, maybe because of homeschooling, I didn't know what a gold medal was. I didn't know people get gold medals at this, what a university gold medal was. So, yeah. So by God's grace, I can only say it was a gift from God, because I never aimed for these things. But there was this thing in me, I knew I had to give my best. So my friends would say, why are you studying that? That usually doesn't come for the exam. And I would say no, I'm studying it because I want to know everything that I can about this subject. And it's for my life. It's not just for the exams. So I always believed in that. I wanted to do my best. So that was my only aim. And then I went on to do my master's again I topped at my master's, and then I started working, and finally I did my PhD much against my will.
Why?
So that was, I was fed up of studying, and I was like, who, I don't want to study. PhD is like so many years, I don't want to study anymore. But I was at a point in my life where nothing really was moving ahead, like even marriage wasn't happening. And I was just working, and then I was like, Lord, what next? What should I do next? And two or three people told me at that time, why don't you try for your PhD? And I was like, I just didn't want to study anymore. Maybe I was too lazy. So I remember I made a prayer to the Lord on 8th of September, Our Lady's birthday, in the chapel, Blessed Sacrament Chapel. And I said, Lord, if you want me to do my PhD, I have to get a scholarship for it. And I had given my NET exam because I was a lecturer. So this national eligibility test for lecturing. And I had already attempted it twice and I didn't clear it. And they have an option there to tick for JRF, which is Junior Research Fellowship, for doing a PhD. And I ticked it, not because I wanted to do my PhD, but because I said, okay, I'm killing two birds with one stone. Let me just do it. I didn't know that they actually evaluate the people who tick that option strict. I didn't know that at that time. Maybe I wouldn't have ticked it then. But it was all God's plan, I guess. So even this third attempt, I ticked that. And I told the Lord, if you want me to do my PhD, I should not only clear my NET exam, I should get this JRF. And in my mind, I was like, that's not going to happen. Because I had not studied this third time, because I was so fed up. I'm like, I've already answered twice and I didn't clear it. So I'm like, it's so not going to happen. And then I remember exactly a month later, on the 8th of October, my friend calls me up and she's like, congratulations. I'm like, why? You cleared NET. I was like, really? She's like, yeah, and you got JRF. I'm telling you, the hair on my hand just stood that day, because I was like, now I have to do my PhD. Like, so I was actually forced by God into doing my PhD. And yes.
And you did it in IIT Bombay, isn't it?
That too worked out, as a plan of God, I think, because I wanted to do my PhD in home science. I loved home science. So I wanted to do my PhD in human development. And I went so many times to the college. From Bombay, from Goa, I went to Bombay. And all the 3 times I went, the principal wasn't there. And I had asked the Lord, I said, Lord, you want me to do my PhD from here? Let the principal be there. And she would never be there. And I was so upset. Then I explored 2 other colleges, one very prestigious college, and I didn't get admission there. And that was very depressing for me, because the interview didn't go well at all. So then someone told me, why don't you try an IIT? And believe me, I was so naive. I didn't know what IIT was at that time. I was like, what's IIT? And I checked, okay, isn't it like a science college, And then my cousin, this relative of mine, she had just answered her PhD, and the examiner was from IIT. So she said, no, they have humanities, because my examiner was from there. So I just went to the website, I saw, I applied, and my exam was so good, because just that year I was, okay, and in IIT they didn't have home science, but they were accepting people of other disciplines. So I had to do it in psychology. So just that year, I was lecturing in the Home Science College in Goa. They had given me the subject of psychology to teach, and I didn't really like it much. And I was like, why, Lord? Why do I have to teach this? I want to teach something else. But I taught it, and the exam paper was everything psychology. And it was so easy for me, because I was just teaching it, at that time. So I really saw God's hand in it all. And then my interview was so good. I just knew after the interview that I'm going to be selected. And it was a difficult decision for me, because I had to leave Goa again and go to Bombay. And I'm not a fan of Bombay, because people who grew up in Goa love Goa. So, but I was so confident, because I knew that was what God wanted me to do. So there was no looking back. I had to go. And I did my PhD
so you're a doctor
in IIT. Now. Yes.
This is the longest I've kept quiet when somebody else was talking, Nadisha. You spoke for...
Oh. I won't take the credit.
So to summarize from your experience, the 3 things that you had as a homeschooler that a normal school-going person did not have was that you had the space in which you wanted to study the subjects that you were interested in. At the same time, you were also able to explore your other talents and gifts, and you were able to give time for it. And the third would be what, Nadisha?
The third thing.
Third is overall formation, don't you think? Because
you're giving all the answers.
okay, you give.
Yes. No, No, but whatever you said was right. Like the main thing about homeschooling is I had the gift of time for everything. So I
Yes.
had the gift of time to even develop my relationship with the Lord because sometimes our life is so busy, we don't have the time to just sit and think about life, just reflect. So I think that was the biggest thing. And also I could learn about myself and without having like this comparison and always running after something
The rat
like
race.
competing, running a rat race. Okay, so I could just be me and do what I liked and discover myself and whatever God wanted of me, I guess.
So, okay.
So
So, I think, so if somebody would, say like, can a homeschooler really do a doctorate, I mean, a PhD in IIT? People would laugh, right, at the first instance, because that's the impression that we have of homeschoolers. Oh, they're just writing open exam. They really do not have formal way of, educating themselves. That's the perception that we have. But you have stood out of that perception, don't you think?
by God's grace alone.
Yes.
I remember my PhD guide, when she got to know that I was homeschooled. I don't, it just came up in a conversation. I was homeschooled. You were homeschooled? I'm like, yes, ma'am. But you're normal. Oh, yes, thankfully.
Cool.
So, yeah. And
So,
my brother also did engineering, just in case some people have questions about that as well. So, yeah, that was like a miracle. He cleared his engineering at the first class.
people tell me that I don't introduce the guests who come on the channel. I just, start off with the interview. So, can you please introduce
Yes.
yourself right now? You're married. How many children? Where are you right now?
Okay, so I'm married to James Korean, my wonderful husband, and I have two girls, Therese and Catherine.
Ah.
Therese is 4 years old, and Catherine has just turned 1. Yeah.
And you're in Goa,
And
right?
yes, I'm in Goa, and I'm the eldest of 5. Yeah.
And what about your siblings? They're all in the seminary?
Yes, so the brother after me, after he did engineering, 6 months after that, he discerned a call to religious life. We were very surprised, but not so much also, because I remember even when he went to engineering college, he would have all these theology books in his bag, and he loved theology of the body and like understanding about life and all that.
Really?
And he would have these conversations with his classmates. They would ask him, "What is this life?" And he would be like having these kind of conversations. So, yeah, so though we were surprised, it was also not so much of a surprise because he kept telling me, he's like, I'm doing engineering, but I don't think this is what I'm called for. So, yeah, so, but he did it because I guess as a boy, he felt he had to do something like that to support, the parents and the family. And, and my brother's actually very intelligent, but they would not put in as much effort as I did. Because they would say, like, you've already shown people that homeschoolers can do it. So we don't have to prove anything. We can just do what we want. So, like, they would hate to give the answer that the teachers expected. So if this was the question, they would be like, but I don't think this should be the answer. Like, why should this be the answer? So they would be like that. And I would tell them, like, just write what you're supposed to write. Because I was a teacher. So I know this is needed. So just give them and then you can give your talks to other people. Okay, so yeah, so this is another thing which comes up, school versus homeschooling. So the brother after that did fine arts, and when he was in the second year, he too discerned a call to religious life to the same order. And my third brother did 12th, and then he wanted to do correspondence, his graduation. So he too went after some time. He wasn't going because he said, okay, somebody has to be at home to look after the parents. But my parents were like, if God's calling you, just go. He'll take care of us. And then my sister always had an inclination towards religious life. So at the age of 16, she left to join the religious order. So
All the
we're
same.
all very happy. Yeah, they've all joined the same order, the Heralds of the Gospel. My sister's in the feminine branch.
The first time in the
So-
history of the Catholic Church, I think. 4 people from the same family.
No, I don't think so. There are people.
Actually,
We won't
Saint
take
Therese.
all the first time things, okay?
I think Saint Therese of Lisieux's sisters were also all part
Yes,
of the
they
same
all of them.
same convent.
Yes.
isn't
But they
it?
one joined another order. Yeah,
Okay.
another convent.
So, Nadisha, a lot of people who are watching, more than 40 people are watching the interview right now. I'm pretty sure all that they want to know is, as a Catholic or a Christian family, should we be discerning homeschooling? Should we, homeschool our children? So that's the question all of them would have. So just give the, Catholic perspective of, Is it a call or it's our decision to homeschool?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both. So if God's putting it on your heart to discern homeschooling, then maybe you should pray about it. And but in the end, God also gives us free will. So we also like decide whether we want to respond to that call or not. Okay. So, and yes, homeschooling isn't for everyone. I think the main thing we as parents need to understand is that, like, what is our role as parents? Okay. Our role as parents is just one thing, to take our kids to heaven. Okay. So if homeschooling is going to aid in that, please homeschool. If you think sending your child to school is going to aid in that, please send your child to school. Like I remember one family I met when I was studying. The father told me, he's like, it's good you're homeschooling, but I would never homeschool my children because I have 8 children. And for me, sending my children to school is evangelizing. Because when my children go to school, the other children know that there's a family with 8 children and this is how they live and this is their life. So I want my children to be a witness in school. So I was like, that's fair enough. So see, the goal is still like we are preparing our children for heaven. So some people do it through school, some people do it through homeschool. So then another thing I think parents would want to think about is like, what is their view of education? Like, what is education for you? Like, so is it just learning academics or is it more? Okay, because only parents know their children as they are. Each child is irreplaceable, as the Vatican document says on homeschool, on parenting, on family life. So every child is irreplaceable and unique, and so only each parent will know how different their children are. In school, the child is just one among the others. Okay, so like. And it's impossible for the school teacher to give individual attention to each child and sit and understand each child's strengths and weaknesses and what they're good at, and like how best they'll develop and how best they'll reach their potentials. So a parent can do this because they know their child well and they love their child the most, more than any teacher. Okay, but yes, a parent also has to remember that our children are not our own, and this, like, I guess everybody agrees. Like even Khalil Gibran has written a poem on this. Okay, that your children are not your own. Okay, so our children are first God's children. Okay, we are just their caretakers. So any decision involving our children, I think, has to be discerned, because we have to ask God, like, what do you want me to do? Like, how do you want me to take care of your child? Okay, you have entrusted this child to me. I'm just a caretaker. What should I do? Okay, so like, and like, for example, a gardener in a nursery, like he knows each plant, even though, like, to me, like both these plants will look the same, both are curry leaves or whatever, but the gardener knows, no, this plant has this many leaves or this many branches, and this one doesn't, and this one I brought from here, and this one needed this type of care, like I won't know it, but the gardener will. So God knows each child like that. And so we have to ask him, what is your will for this child? You know him better than me. Sometimes I don't understand my children, but you know them. So that's why I think it has to be discerned, whatever, whether it is school or homeschool, it has to be discerned.
And so if a parent has discerned and decided to homeschool their children, what are the certain things, like you have been homeschooled and you are planning to homeschool your children, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. So what are the things that you would say are the requirements for a parent? Because, it's easy to discern and decide, but then you also have to do the work, right? You can't simply just have free time with your children. So what are the certain things that parents have to consider before discerning homeschooling? What are the 3 things you would say?
Okay, so first thing is that you have to be clear that I'm being called to this, and God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. So even if you don't have you think I'm not intelligent enough, or I'm not qualified enough, like I'm not a teacher or anything, okay, or I'm not studied enough, if God is calling you to it, He will supply whatever you need. So first thing is you get graces through your marriage, because your marriage is a sacrament. So you have to be open to those graces. Try to be in a state of grace, so that you're always open to graces. Okay, and then see whether you can manage the practice.
You got a call, isn't it?
Yeah.
No problem.
What? Somebody's come, I think.
No problem.
Okay.
Somebody's there to
So,
manage?
yeah. My parents are here.
Okay. So you
Okay.
were saying
So,
calling, yeah, don't worry about.
yeah, so that you're not qualified.
Mm,
Okay.
mm.
Because one thing is that every parent.
I think she's getting another call. You want to
Yeah.
put it on the,
No,
is it connected to
no, no.
Wi-Fi? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, what was I saying now?
Yeah, you don't have to be worried
mm,
about being fully qualified.
Yes,
Nobody
so
is.
yeah, so what I was saying is that every parent is
Mm,
anyways teaching their child is what I have seen, because even if the child goes to school, when the child comes home, the parent sits with the child and asks them, what have you done and what are your lessons? And even if they go for tuitions, the parents are still micromanaging. So you're still spending that much time sitting with your child every day.
mm,
Okay, so in homeschooling, you don't have to spend more time than that.
uh,
Homeschooling is like maybe just 3 hours a day or something, because there's no homework,
mm,
because everything's at home, there's no tuition, it's just that time.
mm,
And actually children don't need many hours to learn. Okay,
mm,
sometimes it's not a benefit actually when you have a lot of time, because you just waste your time or you get bored. So
mm,
when you have little time, you use that well.
mm,
Okay, so see if you can devote like 3 hours maybe.
mm,
And also after a certain age, children self learn.
mm,
So the parent is just there as a facilitator, not really teaching. So
mm.
just there to provide the environment, provide the whatever impetus that the child needs.
Yes.
So yeah, so time, then money, sometimes maybe, because yeah, so if you want to buy a curriculum, sometimes it's expensive,
Mm,
or you may just want to go with the flow. Like we just went with the normal books that we had here,
mm,
because I think if you're interested, you will always learn, whether you have a curriculum or not. Now we learn from the internet, right? So yeah, and then also I think a parent has to be open to changes, because like your homeschooling curriculum will
yes.
not be fixed. There'll always be things in your life that are changing. Your family will go through different stages.
Yeah.
You may have long maternity leaves. Okay, so all that. So I think we should not get worried about it. Like, things will happen if we've left it to God and we are discerning every day. Okay,
Mm,
so it should not be like a fixed decision. It's a decision that can change and can change in different ways.
mm,
So I guess that's that openness to change, and also humility that, we don't know everything and we're not expected to know everything.
mm,
We learn on the job.
mm.
Okay, and I've seen from my own life that most of the learning actually happens when you're on the job. You don't really remember what you learn in college, but when you're working, whatever you work with, that's what you actually take into life.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so these are some things.
And sometimes when the parents are in charge of the whole overall, whether it's academics or spiritual formation or character formation, there is so much of burden on them, because at least when they're going to school or going to church, or with their friends, they have a breather. But then now the whole responsibility is on them. So something goes wrong, eventually they have to carry the burden, right? So the pressure is even more when, in homeschooling for the parents. Would you agree?
Yes, that is true. You also have a lot of parent guilt and am I doing it right? Like self-doubt. Okay, so yeah. So all that is normal.
Mm.
But I guess all of parenting is like that. So, like even if we send our children to school and something goes wrong there,
Mm.
we still carry
Bear
that
the. Mm.
burden and the guilt or whatever. So I think the main thing is just to realize that we can't do it alone, and we really have to rely on God every day.
Mm.
And sometimes God can make miracles even out of our mistakes. I'm sure my parents didn't do everything right with me. I'm sure I didn't do all the things right myself. But yet God takes whatever we give Him and He uses it for His greater glory.
And I've also seen certain parents take the decision to homeschool because they want to save on money, especially the big families. I'm not, generalizing, but there is a tendency, right? Because in homeschooling, you kind of repeat the books. For if you have 5 children, you just have to invest for the first child, and then eventually it goes down the line. So that's not a good way to discern and decide, right? Or finance could be a reason why you want to homeschool your children.
I mean, I can't judge another person's reasons for homeschooling, but as I said, God can take anything that we do if we give it to him, and he can turn it for something good. So yes, I don't think it's a wrong thing to choose homeschooling to save money, because if you really can't manage, and if you're homeschooling to manage your finances better, that is good for your family, because you have to do what you can manage, right? And where your family will thrive. No point sending your children to school and then really struggling for your daily bread. So even if that is a decision to homeschool, it's not a bad one, you know. So and mostly I see homeschoolers do choose a simple lifestyle. So because a parent who homeschools is thinking and is asking bigger questions. So not that school going parents don't, they do. But here it's like you're actually questioning everything you do. So every lifestyle choice is really a much reflected one. So I guess they would be living a life which looks like, okay, they're trying to save money, kind of.
And also, homeschooling is a very, very difficult decisions for working parents, right? Like if both of them are working, then how would they even think of homeschooling? Because they are not going to be at home, and if they do not have at least a teenage child, it's going to be impossible to manage all the children, right? So, what a suggestion would you have for a working parents? Both of them are working, but they still don't want their children to be sucked into the culture and the bad educational system that we have in certain areas in India. So, how can they discern?
Okay, so what some families do is that they employ a tutor, okay, to teach their children. So that is one option. Or maybe if one of the parents could have a part-time job or a half-day job, and if their children could be with some other trusted adult during that time, then when they come home, they could like check what their child has done. But like, so after a certain age, it is usually self-learning. So the parent just needs to be there to check like a principal, you know, at the end of the day, okay, we've done this. Okay, so first the working parent has to really discern whether God is calling them to homeschool, and then if God is calling them to work or stay at home. And then, so whatever is God's will for them, He will provide options. So like, as I said, one could be tutoring, or also I think now some parents also send their children for some classes.
Yeah.
Okay, now with the pandemic, everything is online, but and also because of the pandemic, we have many new startups happening where they're offering curriculums and ready lessons to homeschoolers. So many options are opening up now, which might be a good thing.
And also a lot of parents, I think this misperception that, you know, if you're deciding to homeschool, you have to do everything. It's not like that. It's just that you're deciding everything for your child with proper information and knowledge, and you're not just letting school decide for your children. You are making the decision. So you can have tutors, you can send them to classes, you can do whatever you want, the things that you want to do for your child. And also because working parents might also think, we come after a hard day's work, and again we have to now come and teach our children. Are you kidding me? So we don't have to do that, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, you don't have to. So like many things can be outsourced. Okay, that's if you think that's the call for you,
But the outsource is controlled, like not in schools. You just leave it and nobody knows what's happening. But here you are controlling what's happening.
Yes, that's true. So you choose the teacher, as the Vatican document says. You can choose your helper, your partner. And yes, but we also need to be aware that we can't control everything. Okay, we try to make responsible choices for our children, but yes, we can't control everything, even if we are homeschooling. So we have to always rely on God's protection and His grace.
And a lot of parents might be worried to make this decision to homeschool because of what the society might talk about them, or even their own relatives and family members might say, because education is one of the best things that you can give to a child. Now, if you're going to homeschooling looks like a compromised option for many, so it wouldn't fly well in the society and among family members, right? What would you tell them?
Yes, that is true. Like I remember one of our friends decided to homeschool his children, and he told one of our relatives that, I'm planning to homeschool. And he was like, what, you're planning to homeschool? I hope you know that all children who are homeschooled join religious orders.
Yeah.
Because he was like our relatives. So they were like, it's this scary thing which these people do, and they try to make their children all like religious and protect them from the world. So, yeah, so it's not that, So So yes, one thing is this. So I think parents are sometimes scared of what God might be calling their children to, and um, I think we just try to live like the world, like do what the world is doing. Like as you said, education is the best thing. I don't think education is the best thing we can give our children. I think the best thing we can give our children is God and is our love. Okay, so sometimes we make education an idol
Yes.
and we run after it, and then what? Like after everything at the end of your life, then what? What's next? Like, you've lived the perfect life according to the world, and then you're empty.
And
So
and also, if a passionate Catholic family wants their Catholic formation for their children, and through homeschooling, I mean, some people complain that there are not enough resources for a good Catholic formation, not many Catholic curriculum for homeschooling. What would you say for that?
there are Catholic curriculums, but for us Indians, they're very expensive because they're all in dollars. So they're usually in the US. So we have Seton homeschooling, which is named after Elizabeth Ann Seton, who is the patron saint of homeschooling. And then we have Mate Rama Billy's and Catholic Connections. Okay, so there are options, but they are say expensive for us. So like a few of us parents here in Goa, we were actually discussing like whether we should start documenting what we do with our children, so that maybe we could help other parents who are looking for like a curriculum. Like actually, when you choose to homeschool, actually it's not like you bring school into your home. It's that you actually are just helping a child learn at home. So it should actually be called home learning instead of homeschooling, because we actually don't do most of the things like the school. Okay, so most people wouldn't go for a fixed curriculum. It's like, I understand in the beginning, people who are like not sure how to navigate this whole thing of homeschooling, they want something more structured. But as you go along and you start looking at your child, for who he really is, you realize that every child has a different path. Every child can't follow the same textbooks, and when you reach that point, you actually realize that, you give different resources to them and you don't really need a curriculum. But yes, because there are some who might need this help, some of us were thinking of like getting together and putting our own, whatever we come up with or whatever we come across, into something more organized so that we could help some more families who need it.
So, but you would say there are, I mean, people who can afford it can buy the Catholic curriculum and follow that for their children.
Yes. If they can afford it, I think it's a good curriculum. Because they look at everything from the Catholic perspective, like even history, history is his story. So it depends on who's writing the story. So if you have some person whose values you don't agree with and they write the history, it's going to be different. So it's very important to understand all these subjects, science, from correct perspective.
Some people, like I've heard a couple where her father was not for homeschooling and the mother was for homeschooling, and the mother's reasoning was the fact that her daughter is studying in a very culturally liberal school, and all that she's learning is not in line with what the Catholic Church teaches. And the husband's argument was that, I mean, let her learn all that, but eventually she has to stand strong. So if she doesn't know what she has to be against it, she will not know what she has to stand for. So why should that be? So my question is, because even our Catholic schools have compromised in making Catholic formation very clear for our students, should that be a reason for all Catholic families to jump off the rail from proper schooling and all go into homeschooling because the culture is bad?
Again, I would say it's a calling. See, I don't want to cause any riot here, okay, by saying something. But yes, like the father's reasoning is also valid, okay. But we have to really see what we want our child exposed to. Like, I really believe in children making their own mistakes and learning from their mistakes. But sometimes there are mistakes which are irreversible, okay. So we as parents need to like discern like what things we are okay with exposing a child to. Like exposing them doesn't always prepare them to face that challenge. Okay, sometimes it makes you, sometimes it makes you weaker if you're constantly faced with such things like such pressures. It sometimes weakens your resolve to fight it and stand out. Okay, while if you are constantly receiving some instruction in how to be strong, how to be strong, how to be strong, when the time comes, you're more likely able to stand up. Okay, so yeah, so it goes both ways. So I like the parents would really have to pray and discern what God is asking of them in a situation like this. But yeah, you know, the parents have to be united to make a decision like homeschooling, you know, so because it's not an easy one.
And why would you keep saying it's a calling, Nadisha? Because it's just another choice, alternative to your students' education, right? Why the emphasis on call?
Because if it's not a call, then I think you wouldn't be able to do justice to it. Okay, because you need a lot of grace for it. Okay, so only if that is the path that you have to walk, you will get the grace. It's not that you won't if it's not, but like when it's a call, you are like employed by God to do this, and you have
Yes.
a boss, and you got to report to him, and he tells you what to do. So that's why I'm emphasizing on this word, I guess.
And also, I think it's very important we address the situation of our Catholic institutions in India and especially in America. Most of them are taking people out of the Catholic colleges and Catholic schools, Catholic parents I'm talking about, because the schools now are, trying to be what to say, a more neutral medium, and they want to compromise on the Catholicity of the school and just give a proper academic education. But that was not the intention why Catholic institutions were, built in so many places in so many countries. It's just not the formation of your mind, but also the formation of your spirit. That is the holistic understanding of Catholic education. But today, many Catholic families are looking for these alternatives in terms of homeschooling because the Catholic institutions are not doing their job. Whether starting from our generation, right? Like I studied in one of the best Catholic schools in India, and I still didn't even know how to say a Our Father, Hail Mary till my 11th standard. That's how poor it was.
Okay.
So I think the fact that homeschooling is on the rise is also a symptom of our Catholic institutions in India. Would you agree? I think somebody has to speak about it, right?
Yes. So Don Bosco has actually started schools saying that we are starting schools to save souls. Okay. So actually, the Catholic Church is one of the main providers of education in our world.
Yes.
Most of the schools are run by the Catholic Church. So actually, the main aim of starting schools was to save souls. But now we see the focus is more on like saving our future, like building a secure future, career. And that's also because we are focusing more on academics. So when you focus more on academics, you have to focus on career. So this, as you said, this holistic approach is not there anymore. Yeah. But now slowly some people are realizing it. So, but I guess it's a very slow change. So because of that, maybe some people are considering homeschooling, which is very valid.
Yeah, and as they say, right, after the Second Vatican Council, not because of the Second Vatican Council, but after that, there was a downgrade in terms of the catechization and standing for your faith, stating that the Catholic faith is the one true faith and all that. They wanted to, make it more understanding. So because in many of the Catholic institutions are so good, and a lot of other religious people also come other than Christians, they want to make a level playing field. They don't want people, non-Christians, to feel, oh, okay, somehow this is a Catholic school and all that. So I think they've overcorrected themselves to a other extreme of the spectrum, and I think it has to be both and, right? Like how the church always teaches, both maintain your Catholic identity and both be understanding of where other people come from. You should not be one or the other, or one at the compromise of the other.
I think we're doing it wrong. We try to bring God down to the level of man instead of elevating man to the level of God.
Yeah.
Okay. So like we are trying to like say, like God is going to accept you and come. So he's like, whatever, everybody, he's like you, like God is like you. Instead of saying like, we have to be like him. So we have to lift up our hearts. We say that in Mass, right? Lift up your hearts. So our hearts are like down, and we have to try to like rise up to him instead of he coming down to us. Though he did come down to us and save us, but so our Catholic education needs to be more uplifting, more inspiring. Like when you, like Catholic churches, when you walk into it, you're like awestruck.
Yeah.
Okay, but now some of the modern churches, you don't feel it.
Yes.
Okay, because even this is representing that same philosophy, making things more like ordinary instead of different, special.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is one thing. And as you said, yes, we are trying to make everyone feel accepted. But actually, if you truly live a Catholic life, you will automatically accept everyone and everyone will feel accepted with you. If you really are like following the values of Christ, you will automatically love everyone and everyone will feel your love. Okay, so maybe we are failing in living out um, our lives according to how Jesus really wants us to live. Okay, and that is why there's all this problem and chaos in our society.
And also it's a very bad strategy for evangelization, because it is our Catholic faithful came to our institutions, our hospitals, our social welfare homes and all that. Now nobody wants to come to Catholic school. Even Catholics don't want to go to Catholic schools, because the standard is coming down, and which is why now everybody is now taken over. Everybody's in the social media wall. The church, one of the strategies behind educational institutes and hospitals and colleges was so that we could bring people there and give them the faith and make it an encounter of evangelization. So now that is completely compromised. Neither are people coming. Even if they come, it's not a place of evangelization. So that's the sad part, I think.
Yeah, and due to this, actually, many Catholics are trying to return back to more traditional ways, I guess, because they're seeing this, the consequence of it, I guess. So, yeah.
Cool. So now, just going through some of the myth, even though people have discerned or consciously considering homeschooling, there are certain myths which are there in the mind of people who are not exposed to homeschooling. So the first thing is the homeschooling children do not get to socialize with other people as they do in schools. So what would you say for that?
I would say yes, that's true, but I don't know. I don't think that the socialization that you get in school is something that is a great loss for you. So first we need to understand what is socialization. Socialization means making you like everybody else in society. You following the certain norms of society and living as per societal expectation. So do we really want our children to be like everyone else? Okay, so mostly people who homeschool want their children to be themselves, to be unique, to have their own individual development and to be different, to stand out, to go against the current. Okay, so that's one thing about socializing. Another thing is that not every child who goes to school is social. Okay, my parents went to school. My dad he was more introverted. My mom was more friendly. Okay, so it's not that school makes you social. And also, how much time do you spend in school socializing? Okay, most of the time you're sitting in class, looking at the teacher, and your back is facing your classmates. Sometimes you try to talk this way, pinch each other, and then you're in trouble for that. Okay, so yeah, so you miss out these small little things, all this masti which happens in school. But it's not that you don't get it anywhere else, and it's not that this is like a deal breaker or something. So I think a child being social depends on many factors. One is personality of the child. So even my siblings and I, we are different. Okay, our level of socializing is different. Okay, and as I said, all school-going children are not social. The second point is that it depends on your parents' attitude towards people. Okay, so my parents were always very open to people. They still are. So anybody was welcome in our house, even a drunkard. Anyone could come and stay at our house long as they wanted. So my house was like always, we were 5 children and my cousins were like always with us during the holidays. Our house was always full of people. So my parents' general attitude towards people was open. Okay. So there could be school-going children whose parents are not as open. So that will affect their socializing and how they look at people. And there could be homeschoolers also who are not so social. Okay. So it depends on this also, parents' attitude. Then also on traveling, like my parents traveled a lot. They were into ministry. So they had to go and start marriage encounter in different places. So we went with them. So we got a lot of exposure. And also because we were always with our parents, we went with them everywhere. So we met different people. We learned how to handle conflicts. We learned how to bargain. We learned like so many things. And even in the home, my grandparents lived with us. I had my baby sisters, so I had to learn to be like a mother sometimes. I had to learn sometimes to be like a nurse to my grandparents, or different things. You learn how to talk differently to the elderly, talk differently to children, talk differently to your parents, to your neighbors. So, if as long as you're living in a world and not on an island, I think you have opportunities for developing your social life.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah. So it's this is also a perception. First of all, this label is always with Catholic families that they are all big, they have many children, and sometimes the understanding is homeschooling is only for big children, big families, and it's not for families with 1 or 2 children. What would you say?
It's ideal if you have a big family when you homeschool, because then you have like more children in the class. But it's God. If you are like really practicing Catholicism and you are discerning with God, then it's God who decides your family size. So He decides your classroom size. Okay, yeah, we would love to have more children, but God is giving us in His own time. Okay, initially we were not even sure we would have children. It was that we were at that point. So, and God also puts this calling on your heart to homeschool. So if He's given you one child and you really can't have more, even if you want to, okay, that's His decision, and He will plan everything so that even if you are homeschooling just one child, you will be able to give the best to that child. Okay, so though it is ideal, but yes, you have to keep discerning even your family size with God.
And another misperception, especially among Indians, is homeschooling is not for Indian Catholic families because we do not have the facility or the support system that Western countries have.
Yes, so like in Western countries, you can actually register yourself as a homeschooler, and it's like the system is all in place. You have people sending you exams and all. So in India, we don't have that. But as I said, we have to first think about what are we looking for in education? So there are two things. I have something to show you. Okay, so like there are these two eggs. So both are green. Okay, so it depends. So if you break the egg from the outside, it's very neat. It's a shortcut method. Okay, sorry, I did it wrong. Okay, so if you break the egg from the outside, okay, it's a clean cut, and all that you get is an omelette. Okay, you can fry this egg and it's eaten and it's over. Okay, but if the egg breaks from inside, okay, it takes time. Okay, because it's a long process to make this egg ready to hatch. Okay, and it's a struggle. That's why it has a lot of these edges. Okay, it's a struggle. But when the egg breaks from the inside, you get new life. Okay, and this is a life-changing thing. Okay, when the egg breaks from the inside. So school gives us, we get everything. So like even in if you have a formal system of homeschooling, you will get everything. So everything's like a clean cut. There's less effort. Okay, but is the change lasting? Okay, so when there is a struggle and more of internal development, okay, then you have like more lasting, like life-changing sort of results. So yes, so I don't think that should be a deterrent to homeschooling, that we don't have a system. But now we also have a big support system in India. So we have a lot of support groups for homeschooling in many states. Okay, for general homeschooling and as well as Christian homeschooling as well as Catholic homeschooling. Okay, so a lot of us receive our support from these groups, and even in these groups, different families homeschool differently. Okay, some follow a curriculum, some buy curriculums, some make their own curriculum, some don't follow a curriculum. Okay, so each family is different, and when we see this, it like that adds beauty to the garden, right? If, like as Saint Therese said, if all flowers were the same, it would not be that beautiful.
Okay, last question, Nadisha. So some people think homeschooling is a narrow-minded approach because, as St. Paul says, be in the world but not of the world. So if we, as Christians and Catholics, we are meant to be in the world to sanctify and be the salt of the earth. Why are we, pulling our children back into the houses, back into the safe zone, and not letting them face the challenges in the culture, in their school environment, and make them more fortified and stronger?
So we do want to do that. It's just that we are preparing our children before we launch them. Okay. So as I said, like if you can form your child and give them that strong base tomorrow, when they go into the world, they have to be able to not only stand up for the Lord, but even die for the Lord. Are we helping our children? Are we preparing our children for that? Are we, actually, it's a very difficult thing as a parent. Even I have to think, like, am I preparing my child to be a martyr for Jesus, like, in any circumstance? Okay, that much strength he has to have. In the end, martyrdom is a gift and it's God's grace also. But somewhere we have that the preparation is there. Like some saints changed overnight, but those are few, not the majority. Okay, so, and we are, as I said, we are not living in a cocoon, we're not living in an island, we're still living in the world. It's just that we don't send them to school, okay, but they go everywhere else. So it's not that we are isolating them, okay?
And Bishop Barron also says, like Saint Benedict, right? Like in the 4th century, after he had the encounter with God, he went into the mountains and hills and he, formed himself, spending time in contemplative prayer. As you rightly said, sometimes before you go into the battle, it's better that you take time to form yourself, prepare yourself before you go into the battle. So there are times when you have to pull back because those times are the times of preparation. And today, what Saint Benedict did was the foundation for the European civilization, and that's how Christianity spread to so many parts of the world. So sometimes you have to, pull back to be launched, like they do this with that.
Yes, yes. And also one more thing is that we are not narrow-minded when we want to homeschool. We are actually broad-minded because we are making the choice for our children to be different. Okay, and in school it's like there was this song. It's called the homeschooling anthem. It says, make the children like little boxes that come out of a factory and all have to be same. Like, so that is narrow-minded, right?
Yeah.
Broad-minded means we let our children be different and, follow their own path, their own call. Which is very individual.
Sometimes school education, I feel it's more socialist form of thinking because it is only socialist governments. They think every human being is a commodity. Everybody has to do the same job. Everybody earns the same thing. Everybody has to do the same kind of things. So I think in homeschooling, we allow the child to be who they want to be with their unique traits and qualities because God created everybody with a specific plan in life and with specific talents and gifts. And as parents, that is the job, to help them go towards that purpose. So yeah, that thought just came to my mind.
Yes.
Cool.
I think you know more than me about homeschooling.
And I'm not even married. Okay, shall we take some questions, Nadisha? So some of them
Yes,
are
sure.
inquiring about the homeschooling thing in India. So Jay Kumar, he says, can you please share your website for homeschooling? I don't know if there is one.
Okay, we'll have to make one.
So
we have a support group, but yeah, we don't have a website.
Okay. Frenzina Dikuna, how do we get the leaving certificate when a homeschooling kid joins college?
You don't need a leaving certificate. You just need the degree, the examination that you pass. That's just that certificate. So if you do open school, you get this thing called a migration certificate, which colleges accept, or a transfer certificate. It's called.
Tina Thomas asks, how could I connect with Catholic homeschoolers in India? Homeschooler mom of 3 from Delhi. She's from Delhi.
Okay. I think if you give your number or something, you could connect them to me, and then I could pass on their contact. I'm also open to having conversations with anyone who would like, or even there are some others from our group who would be willing to talk to anyone who wants more information.
We have other questions, but are all similar to what I've already asked. So Deepika Mascarenhas says, so proud of you, Nadisha. Zenita, Sequera, Was, Shays, excellent talk, Nadisha, all your friends.
They're all from our group,
Okay, okay.
homeschooling group,
Homeschooling. Okay, okay.
my support system.
Cool. Any last words, Nadisha? I think, do you realize that we have spoken more than 1 hour?
I'm not surprised though.
Yes.
Knowing you and knowing me.
Yeah. Final words.
Yeah, so I think the main thing in homeschooling, if you think God is calling you, is to pray, have some silent time with God, and to think, okay, like reflect, and like ask yourself if this move will make you a better parent, and if it will make your child a better person and will be able to serve God in a better way. I think that's the only thing we need to be concerned about, because everything else falls into place, as the Bible verse says, seek first the kingdom of God and all these things will be added unto you. And many times I doubted this verse, but it has worked out in my life, and like things just fell into place. God planned my life, He planned my career, and I'm banking on Him to plan the days ahead. So I will keep all of you in prayer who are on this brink in your life.
So all the people whom you have answered, right, they are all asking for your email ID or number. So probably I'll give them your email ID. They can get in touch with you, and after that, maybe you can take it forward.
Yes, sure.
Okay, Nadisha, stay on the call. I'll just end the call.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.